Hi, I'm Fran from the Newark Museum of Art, and it is story time. Today we are happy to have with us Travis from Eyes of the Wild, and our book today is Crickwing by Janell Cannon, sorry. I want to remind you that if you are watching us on Facebook, that you can put questions in the comments sections or comments. And if you are watching us via Zoom, then you can put in the Q&A some questions or comments that you might have. So here we go. Crickwing by Janell Cannon. Far below the great forest canopy lies a shadowy world that many insects call home. Among the damp clutter of fallen leaves and branches, leaf-cutting ants toil all day while large cockroaches await their evening search for food. One cockroach had looked like all the others until a close call with a hungry toad. In his wild escape from the toad's sticky tongue, he had twisted one of his fine long wings. Since then, everyone called him Crickwing. Crickwing despised his name, and he avoided hearing it by staying far away from the other creatures. He would sneak out to find his food when the night was darkest, knowing that the forest was crawling with predators, even worse than ravenous toads. The forest seemed much less fearsome whenever Crickwing found a nice pile of tasty leaves, roots, and petals. He took comfort in their bright colors and interesting shapes, and he often built sculptures from them before he ate them. When he was busy playing with his food, he would almost forget the pain in his crooked wing. One night, Crickwing created the most wonderful sculpture ever. He was so absorbed in his work that he didn't hear the soft footsteps behind him. Pow, swoosh! A sharp-eyed monkey clobbered Crickwing and swiped his sculpture. Oh no. Crickwing dove for cover. I only let him get away with it because he's so big, he grumbled. Poor Crickwing. Crickwing hid until the next night when hunger drove him out to search for a meal. But as soon as he had added the final flower petal to his dinner, an enormous scaly lizard nearly gulped him down. Crickwing dodged and the lizard took off with his edible artwork. Another masterpiece ruined. I'm starving and my wing aches. I don't know if I can take this much longer. The next night, things got worse. Ooh, what's that? Do you know what that is? An ocelot pounced and nearly crushed Crickwing. Oh no, not again, he cried. When he landed, Crickwing scrambled about in a panic and leaped into a crevice under a stone where he collapsed in angry tears. I'm so tired of having to run from giant predators. I hate being so small, and I hate never being able to finish a meal. I'm a mere exoskeleton. Many hours later, sunlight streamed into his cave, and the leafcutter ants began another busy day. Thousands of tiny workers carried large slices of leaves back to their colony. Crickwing, groggy and still angry, crept out for a better look. Ha! These guys are even punier than I am, he muttered. None of the ants seemed to notice. Crickwing inched closer. There's something about these critters that just bugs me. Why isn't anyone bothering these little twerps? He placed a spiny leg across the leafcutter path. Well, let's see what happens now, he chortled. Have a nice trip. See you next fall. Get it? Several ants stumbled, but then went back to work as if Crickwing weren't even there. This will get their attention, he growled, picking up a leaf from the path. The ant carrying the leaf hung on tight, which gave Crickwing a dastardly idea. He hung several ants from a vine, one by one, and watched with glee as their tiny legs flailed. Crickwing laughed so hard that he nearly forgot his aching wing. That night, Crickwing wolfed down a sweet flower bud, not even noticing its dazzling purple color. He had work to do. Right in the middle of the leafcutter trail, he dug a deep hole in the ground. When he crouched behind a rock, waiting to see what the ants will do. In the very early dawn, the ants rose as usual and went to work. When they returned, their cargo clamped in their jaws, they could barely see their way. They plummeted into the trap, piling into a great green heap. These muddling molecules are so easy to fool. That's kind of mean, huh? He's showing his dark side. Back in the leafcutter colony, the queen of the ants called a meeting. Oh, there she is. Look how big she is. This week's production is down, she barked. What on earth is going on? It's a cockroach, Your Highness. He's picking on us. No cockroach meddles with our colony. Seize him, ordered the queen. The next morning, the ants found Crickwing fussing with his latest ant trap. He had no chance for escape as thousands of leafcutters swarmed over him, dragged him back to the anthill, and marched him down its dark, winding corridors. When the tunnels narrowed, the ants cramped. Crickwing threw one final tight spot. Pop! His wing snapped back into place, and he realized that the throbbing ache was gone. Before he could give it another thought, the ants pulled their prisoner into a chamber and buried him up to his neck. For hours, the whole colony filed by, whispering to one another, "How do you think he became so awful? His mother must be heartbroken." That big oaf showed up just in time for the annual peace offering to the army ants, crowed the queen. There's no way they'll attack us if we hand this hefty no-gooder over to them. Truss him up like a fat turkey, he is, and we'll ship him out. The ants hiked in silence for a long time. "I can't do this," Eartha blurted at last. "Neither can I," Tara shuddered. "Remember the giant beetle we brought to the army ants last year?" "Yeah, they took him apart before we could even turn around and leave." Crickwing gulped. "Nobody deserves that, not even this big bully," said Eartha. "I say let him go. He never really hurt any of us." "What will we tell the queen?" Tara asked. "And what about the army ants? They'll level our colony." "I just can't watch him shred this guy," insisted Eartha. "We'll figure something out." And the ants released Crickwing and fled. Crickwing was stunned. The queen is going to have their heads, and the whole leaf-cutting colony is now in serious danger, all because of me. Now that his wing was no longer hurt, he could think clearly. And then he had a brilliant idea. "Wait, wait," he yelled. "I can help, wait." He described his plan, and the ants listened carefully. "We have to move quickly, but I think it'll work." "Can we trust this Yahoo?" yelped Gravel. "Do we have much choice?" snapped Tara. "The plan is worth a try, and we'll do our best to win the patience of the queen." Eartha promised, "But we don't have much time. Jump on my back, all of you. I am one fast runner." In a fat corner in the forest, in the far corner of the forest in the army ant camp, the lieutenant paced angrily. "Those loose leaf-cutting ant fools are late," she snarled. "If we don't have our peace offering by tomorrow at dawn, we march in and take what's rightfully ours." Ooh, she's scary. At first light, the army swarmed from its nest, ready for conquest. "No one," shouted the lieutenant, "absolutely no one keeps the army ants waiting." As the ferocious ants turned the final bend, they stopped, dead in their tracks. For a long, silent moment, they shared at the hugest, strangest, greenest anteater they'd ever seen. It loomed high over them, its terrible tongue dangling from its mouth. The lieutenant's squeaky voice broke the quiet. Halt! About face and run! The army ants tripped over one another as they scrambled back toward their camp, none of them daring to look back. Crickwing and the leaf-cutting ants peered from atop the leafy anteater's head, watching the warriors fade into the forest. They all held their breath until the entire terrified horde had vanished. Then the queen approached. I don't think we'll ever see them ever again, thanks to you and your enormous sculpture, Crickwing. Or should we call you Straightwing now? We need someone to help us keep this anteater in order, so I hope you will decide to join our colony. And I hear that you're an incredible chef. Oh, I just like to play with food, Crickwing replied. And please call me Crickwing, Your Highness. I would very much like to stay. Three cheers for Crickwing, shouted Eartha. All the ants joined the cheer, then rushed into the forest. They gathered the brightest flower petals they could find and cut them into sparkling bits. All night at the banquet, everyone threw flower confetti, danced the stick step, and sang until sunlight came creeping through the trees. The queen peeked at the dawn, Queen peeked at the dawn and blinked drowsily. I declare today a holiday, she yawned. Hear, hear, said Crickwing. And for the first time in colony history, the leaf cutters took a day off. And that's the end of the story. I'm going to hand this over to Travis from the Eyes of the Wild. And remember, if you have comments or questions on Facebook, put them in the comments section. And if you are on Zoom, put them in the Q&A or chat. Thank you.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. So my name's Travis Gale. I run an exotic animal rescue called Eyes of the Wild. And so I am going to show you a couple of animals real quick. But before I take them out, I always tell everybody a couple of fast, quick things. The animals that I show people, they are not my pets. We don't go to the pet store and get them. We get most of them from people who try that. And when they get home, they change their mind. Because the guys that we have here at Eyes of the Wild, they don't really learn names or come when they're called or do cool tricks. They could nibble on the people who keep them. They might even go potty right on the people who keep them. And that's when everybody calls us and they say, get this guy out of here. And so I tell you that for the boys and girls who might be watching. So when we're done, you don't start bugging your mom and dad and say, hey, get me one of those cool things I saw. Because these guys really don't make great pets. We also do get a lot of them from people who were not very nice to them. And so when we come out to see people, we always tell everybody to be teachers when you're around animals and be quiet and calm when you're near them, okay? So just so you know, that's where these guys come from. The animals that I'm gonna show you, kind of one of the stars of the book, we got a small colony of these cockroaches. These are called hissing cockroaches. And the hissing cockroach comes from Madagascar. Now, the reason that we got them, a teacher had them in their classroom as a classroom pet. They had about 9 or 10 of them. And hissing cockroaches, they can have up to 40 babies at one time. And they can do that several times a year. So we very quickly wound up with several more hissing cockroaches. And we have a small colony of them. Now, a lot of times when people see a cockroach, they're not too crazy about seeing them. And that's because the house roaches that we get, they a lot of times will steal our food. They will, they can actually spread germs. The hissing cockroach and most species of cockroaches, though, are plant eaters. In fact, these guys eat dead plants. They can often be found inside hollow logs in Madagascar. And what they're doing is when a tree dies and the log falls to the ground, the hissing cockroach actually eats the dead wood and turns it back into soil when they go to the bathroom. So that is actually very helpful. They are recyclers. So having them around is very, very important. Most species of cockroach, let's put a little piece of lettuce in front of it. Maybe it'll want to chew on that. The one that's on my hand is actually, I believe, a pregnant female. It's definitely a female. Her abdomen is really swollen, so I think she's probably going to lay some eggs pretty soon. When they lay eggs and the babies come out, they are smaller than this one, but they look like this. They're white. This one just shed its exoskeleton, so it's very soft. On the outside of an insect's body, they have a hard covering called their exoskeleton. And when they shed it, they're a little bit soft. The babies are smaller than this, but they look white, just like this when they hatch out of their egg, okay? So I also want to try to show you real fast. She is a female. This one on this hand, whoop, is a male. And we got one running on the table. Let me put that back in there. Okay. So this one is a boy and the other one is a female. The way I can tell is the males have thicker, larger antennas. And that male, you can see right now, it's got big bumps on top of its head. And that's how we can tell it's a boy. Now, what they're famous for is they do hiss. They don't hiss with their mouth. On their abdomen, on the back, on the male, you can see there's little black spots on its body. Those are called spiracles. And what they'll do is they force air out of those little holes very fast, and it makes a hissing noise. They do that for two reasons. One is to scare away a predator, which might sound weird. Like if a bully came up to you and said, "Hey, I'm going to get you," would you go? That probably wouldn't work, right? But why does an animal come up to the cockroach? It wants to eat it. Is your food supposed to hiss? Like what if you went to McDonald's and you got a cheeseburger, and just as you're ready to bite it, it goes. Would you put it in your mouth? No, right? You throw it away and go down the street to Burger King. You go get your food somewhere else. So that hissing noise a lot of times startles the predator. It might drop it, and then the cockroach gets a chance to get away. The other sound, they do make a sound. The male will make a hissing sound to attract a female. And only the male makes that sound. So he makes a specific hissing sound to attract the female. So a couple different reasons that they do that. So they're actually really cool animals. They have a bad reputation. Most cockroaches are totally harmless to us. And in fact, like these, they are recyclers. And without them around, we wouldn't be able to survive. Without animals that don't turn dead plants into new soil, we wouldn't survive on this planet. Now, in Crickwing, in the story, there was a part where the cockroach almost got eaten by a big lizard. So I'm going to show you something really quick. A lot of cockroaches, like our hissing cockroaches, they come from Madagascar, which is island off the coast of Africa. One of the things the hissing cockroach would run into a lot is an animal called the chameleon. Chameleons are great insect hunters. And so I have a really cool chameleon next to me that we're going to show you. And we've trained it. It will actually catch crickets from my hand. So I'm going to show you what that looks like, because it's pretty amazing. My helper here, Miss Kim, she's going to try to get him to climb up. And she's going to try to show you a couple things while I get some crickets. But he has these really cool feet that split in half. They kind of look like this, and he can wrap them around branches. They have 3 toes on one foot and 2 on the other. And he has a prehensile tail, so he can hang on with that tail. But he also, I'm going to try to get him to climb up. If I show him some crickets, a lot of times he'll kind of move over into the right spot. But when they are climbing, they use those special feet. Their front feet and their back feet can grab on very well. And that tail they can hang on with. So they have that prehensile tail. She can also show you what's really cool is he has very special eyes. Let me see if I can get him to turn around over here. Come here, mister. He has a hard time climbing on the screen. Come here, buddy. Look. Let's get you over here. Look, look, look. Look what I got. Turn this way. You see it? Here, buddy. Look what we got. So I don't know why he wants to climb there. Let's put him on this vine. There we go. And so if you can see his eyes, he has the coolest eyes that can move independently. He can have one eye looking one way while the other one is looking another way. And that's how they focus on their food and catch their prey. So if he's climbing in a tree, he can look for insects on either side of his body. He can have one eye facing forwards and one eye facing backwards, one eye facing up and one eye facing down. So it's really cool. Now I'm going to show you how he eats. If you watch this tongue, it's really amazing. His tongue can be longer than his body. He can launch that thing out in a fraction of a second. And when it hits the cricket, it kind of changes shape at the end. It wraps around the cricket and it's sticky so he can catch it. So his tongue is sort of like a spring inside of his body. Now watch this, ready? Right off of my fingers. It's really cool. This took us a while to get him to do this, but now this is the way he really likes to eat. He kind of has gotten spoiled. He says, oh, you just got to hand feed me all the time, right? So here we go. One more. We got this chameleon. They are very sensitive and they're hard to take care of. The family that had him before us, they were having to take him to the vet all the time. And so his care was kind of expensive for them, and they asked us to give him a home. And we've had him now for several years. He's called a veiled chameleon. We'll give him one more cricket. Ready? Super cool how he launches that out and catches his food. So if you're a hissing cockroach in Madagascar, this is one of the animals you really got to look out for because they're so good at hunting insects. But it's so cool. If you look at those eyes, how they move up and down and from side to side. His two eyelids are grown together, so he has this pinpoint focus on his target when he does find something that he wants to try and eat. Really cool veiled chameleon. I'm going to show you one more real quick, then we'll do some questions, I think. Last one I want to show you is also an insect eater. And if you were an ant, you would be a little nervous when you saw this last one. It is not an ant eater, but when we bring it out, a lot of times when kids see her, they think that she looks a lot like an ant eater. Let me grab this one. She's over here. Okay, so this little animal, this is an animal called a coati or a coatimundi, or some people say Coati or coatimundi. And you can see she has a really long nose that reminds kids of an anteater. Coatis live in Central and South America, so they're not an animal you'd see around us. They do have a cousin, though, that you could see at your house at nighttime trying to flip over your garbage can. Their really close cousin is the raccoon, and she even has a ringed tail, kind of like a raccoon. Coatis, though, they're sort of like the crazy cousin of the raccoon. These animals are big-time troublemakers. She won't seem like a lot of trouble right now because she kind of just likes hanging out with her mommy. We got this animal. Someone was trying to raise her and sell her as a pet illegally. They got in trouble and got her taken away. When we got her, she was so small, I had to feed her milk from a bottle. Baby furry mammals, they get milk from mommy. Who gave her the milk? Me. So she says, Travis, I guess you're my mommy. And she says, I like to cuddle up here with mom. But if I brought this animal to your house and turned her loose, she would cause more drama than you could imagine. She'd find out where your food is, and she'd find it fast because of that nose. Coatis have an incredible sense of smell. They're also always hungry, and they live in big groups. Up to 30 of them can live together in a group. So imagine what that would be like. Like, boys and girls, what if you were all in a gym at your school and you're hungry? You're always hungry. You got a great big nose like hers that you can stick into different places and you can smell food from really far away. And then I hide one pizza in your gym. What would it be like in there? Total chaos, right? You'd all be running around sticking this big nose into everything as fast as you could. Because you know, if you're not fast, you don't get to eat. Since that's the way they act in the wild, and that's what they do. They run around, they stick their nose into everything super fast. And that makes them really hard to take care of, since that's the way they act in the wild. First one of these we ever got at Eyes of the Wild, we got about 18 years ago. And I had never raised a coati. So I made a really big mistake. I brought it in my house. Big mistake. The coati was sniffing around on the floor and it saw a light on my table. So it jumped up on the table and started sniffing the light. And I thought, that's pretty cool. It jumps high. But then she decided to look under the light. So she put her paw under it and flipped the light right off the table. The light smashed all over the floor. That scared her. So she jumped off the table right at me and landed on my head. I wasn't ready for that. And its claws grabbed onto my head. So I went, ah! When I did that, it jumped off my head, landed on my TV, knocked the TV over, and broke that too. So it broke a light, scratched my head, and broke my TV. And it happened like this fast. There was nothing I could do. It was like this, crash, oh, crash, oh. And the Coati looked at me like, so? She was like, big deal, man. This is what I do. You better get used to it. So this is an animal that should never live in somebody's house. Anything expensive you have, like a TV, she's probably going to break it one day. Any toys you own, she's going to say, those are mine now. Good luck getting them back, especially in one piece. She can be dangerous. She does have sharp teeth and claws. She never tries to hurt me because I fed her milk from a bottle. She thinks I'm her second mom, and you do not try to beat up your mom. But with strangers, she can be dangerous. And there is one more thing that makes her hard to take care of. She's rude. She thinks she's allowed to stick her nose wherever she wants. You see that? She sniffed my mouth and she pulls it open, tries to stick her whole head in there. And do you know why she did that? What are Coatis always looking for? Food, right? She sniffs my mouth and she says, oh, you had a salad for lunch. Maybe if I stick my head in there, I'll find leftovers. If she doesn't find food in my mouth, sometimes she says, maybe I got to keep sniffing. What are you sniffing for? Sometimes she'll actually stick her nose right up my nose. Right, you? Maybe she just wants to stick her nose in your nose. So super cool little animal. Very big insect eater. They can stick their nose into ant hills and turn the end of their nose to pinpoint where the food is. And they have that great sense of smell to hunt their food. Oh,
Travis, that was a great story and enactment.
Yeah.
So we do have a couple of questions. One is, these are about the chameleon.
Mm-hmm.
Can the chameleon turn his head all the way around?
No, he can't turn his head all the way around, but he can point his eyes. You know, a lot of animals that have eyes on the side of their head, they have a great field of vision. They can see things almost all the way around them. And the chameleon, with its eyes that stick out, can rotate them so it can see things behind them, but it can't turn its head all the way around.
Great. And what eats a chameleon, or do they have predators?
They do have some predators. In Madagascar, where a lot of them live, there is an animal that looks kind of like a cat called a fossa. And those animals are famous for hunting lemurs. Lemurs sometimes will hunt chameleons. There are some predatory birds that would catch them, and some other reptiles, some larger snakes and things like that would go after them. The veiled chameleon comes from the Arabian Peninsula. And so one of their main issues would be predatory birds.
Mm-hmm. And one more question we have is, how is the chameleon's tongue sticky?
Well, so it just really, it's not like there's a glue or something on the end of it. It's just that very tip of its tongue, the saliva in its mouth is a little bit stickier than ours. And so it creates, when it hits something, it creates this tension that helps hold on as its tongue kind of wraps around its target and pulls it back to it, right?
Okay. Well, those are all the questions we have today. I want to thank you. That was spectacular to see all those amazing creatures in one place.
Thank you for sharing your time with us. Really appreciate it.
And we'll see you next week. I want to remind everyone that on Saturday, we have an open house for virtual camp. So please drop in. It's at 10:45 a.m. And of course, next week, we have another live story time with Travis and some other creatures. So I want to thank everyone for coming today, and you have a great day.